Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for our Wednesday financial wellness webinar here at Patelco Credit Union. My name is Andrew Farrell. I am Patelco's financial well-being educator. I'm so happy and so grateful that you all chose to spend your Wednesday evening with us. Very, very excited to have you all here and very excited for this webinar that we have in store for you all as well. So for those of you who were on our first webinar of the month, 2 weeks ago in May, we had our part one of our two-part financial wellness webinar series, all about your money landscape. And you are now here for part two, which is putting your money to work, investing, planning, and staying steady. We have the same wonderful guest presenter, Nadia Vanderhall, today to go over all the stuff. This is actually probably one of our most requested webinars that we've had on our feedback form at the end of our webinars. So again, we listen to your feedback, and hopefully we are going to give you something that you guys have been really been craving, and something that you're going to get a lot of information for. So just to review a little bit of the webinar etiquette, make sure you use the chat function for any kind of comments, suggestions, or just kind of talking amongst yourselves. If you are using the chat, there should be an option when you're in chat that you can set it to everybody instead of just hosts and panelists. If you're not already defaulted to everybody, just make sure that when you're using the chat, it goes to everyone so that when everyone can be a part of the conversation, see your comments, see your thoughts, all that good stuff. We also have the Q&A feature as well. So we will hopefully have a few minutes at the end of today's webinar to have some designated Q&A time. If you have any questions for Nadia throughout today's presentation, just go ahead and dump those questions in the Q&A. I will be copying those from there. And then at the end of the webinar, if we have some time, we'll go over some of those Q&A questions that we had for Nadia here at the end. At the end of this webinar, everybody will be receiving an email of tonight's presentation. Normally, that's going to be sent sometime mid next week or so. It'll come from a Patelco email address, and it will have a link to a YouTube recording. So if you want to go back and review all of the goodies that Nadia has to share with us this evening, keep your eyes peeled for that. Nadia was also kind enough to make a take one, or like a little PDF that's going to be kind of a review of both parts of our May financial wellness series. I will actually be sending that out myself end of this week. So on Friday, you should be getting a PDF with just a little take one of some of like the main snippets from both these two webinars, so you can go back and kind of review. It's also going to have some great resources that she mentions as well in her presentations. So lots of great stuff in that leave one. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Also on Friday, 3 attendees will be randomly selected to receive a $25 Amazon gift card that will come from us as well. And we will also have that email sent out on Friday. So I say it every time we have our webinars. Keep your eyes open for that. If you do get an email that says, congratulations, you're our Patelco webinars Amazon gift card winner, that is not scam, that is not fraud, that is us actually giving you a $25 Amazon gift card as our raffle winner as a thank you for tuning in to our webinars this evening. And as always, I'll mention it again at the end, but we do have that post-webinar survey at the end of all of our webinars. That's really, really helpful for us. That's how we were able to get you this webinar here, talking about investing and planning and all that good stuff. So please drop your suggestions and your feedback in that webinar as well. So with all that said, I would like to first introduce this evening's webinar, as well as introduce our speaker. So this is, like I said, the second part of our May webinar series. So we have our guest presenter, Nadia Vanderhall. She is going to help us move from understanding into putting things into action. So whereas part one was about kind of understanding where we are right now financially, where we are right now emotionally, understanding our risk tolerance, things like that. Tonight, part two will be covering strategies and mindset shifts. So Nadia is going to offer plain language breakdowns of financial instruments such as retirement accounts, investment accounts, indexes, mutual funds, things of that nature. Together, we're going to explore how planning shifts across life stages, and we'll talk strategies for building a sustainable long-term plan. Like I said, our speaker is Nadia Vanderhall. Nadia Vanderhall is a financial planner and educator who blends real life experience with clear, human-centered money guidance. She is the founder of the Brands and Bands Strategy Group. She helps people understand their finances, build plans that fit how they actually live, make confident decisions that are rooted in their values. Nadia has also been featured in outlets like Fast Company and USA Today. She is known for making financial topics approachable, practical, grounded in real life, and also pretty fun. So with all that said, Nadia Vanderhall, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening. Well, it's evening over here. Um, Hopefully everyone is having a good day so far. I want to go ahead and move into part two. And I saw a lot of good feedback from everyone around what we were seeing and feeling in part one. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of a not an icebreaker, but a warming up. If this is no matter if this is your first time hearing me talking about this topic, or this is you coming back for part two, these questions are going to be amazing. So, the first thing is since part one, which of these are the closest to where you are now? That you've been thinking about your savings differently, things are starting to click. You at least did one action. That's one of the things I charged you with. No credit card. With is the action step that you got the application and insights, and now what is one thing that you can do that 1% better? And then are you still processing things? And today feels like it's the next step. And then if you are new here, let us know in the chat as well and see if anyone is in the chat. I could check the chat. Hello. All right. I've already got a good, introduction, so we don't need to go there. So let's recap. Part two is picking up where part one ended. So here's like a 60-second soundbite that we talked about the three P's when it comes to your money and the framework. The first one is pulse, literally. We got an understanding and we own what was going on in this economy. And then we understand the reality, but also understanding our emotion. So position is where you stand. You know where the economy is, but here's where you stand. We mapped up all of the savings maps and the different savings types from emergency fund to short term, long term, and even investing as a form of saving. And then we talked about the stages. A lot of people love that pyramid that I gave. And then went on into pivot. So you know what's going on, you know where you are, and you know how you want to go. So it's that 1% better, that 1% step. If it is starting your emergency fund, if it is doing an audit of your wallet, determine where you currently are and how to seize it, and then what stages are applicable to where you are as a person as well as what's going on when it comes to your wallet and your wealth. So this part is a little interesting. It's taking the 3P brand or element, but also going into how can we take the insights and then how can we implement it? And that's when implementation gets real. All right, so this one is three sections. Of course, I told you it was going to be three P's, but part one is where you at the foundation, and part two is where we're going to expand and water the tree. The first one is going to be your purpose, understand your why, not why things are going on the way that they're going on, but what's going on with you. Why growing your money is different than just storing it. Everyone loves to tell you to put your money in this account, but no one gives you the plan on how to implement that beyond that. And it's different between just saying I need to open up an account. Now, how do we move into the products that actually make sense? That's what number two is know your tools. And then the thing that we talked about in part one was that I wouldn't tell you to hammer where it's a screw. So you have to understand the accounts, the instruments, and the money vehicles to actually put your money to work versus it's just sitting there. And then we give each one a job description. You remember from part one that we talked about how each account tool or implementation has a job description. And then part three or number three is to build your path. I wish I would have underlined that. It's that we now, how do we build a plan and adjust it to how life ebbs and flows? And the key thing that I really wanted to call out is to stay grounded during no matter how the market or the economy gets loud, because we can all agree that it's kind of loud right now. So the thing that comes to finding the cash flow that we talked about in part one was that now that you went through the budget and determined what do you have, now how can I expand that sum to make it grow my sum? Meaning it's not necessarily just put money here, but it's moving from just storing money, which is good. You're supposed to have some, but then also how do we grow that money? So when it comes to the, how can I say, job description per se, is that each of them have a job. First, on the storing side, is that how do we keep things safe and accessible? What's one of the things that I've been talking about lately on my own platform is that how can I have money that I can get right now? But then on the growing side of it is that how can I put money away for it to grow? If you are I'm not gonna say 80s baby, if you remember, geez, what is it? The Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi about wax on, wax off. So storing money is going this way, but growing money is going that way. But when you grow the money, it's going to generate over time. It's going to keep cycling back because one of the things that we talked about in part one was how money is a cycle as well as money is energy. Going on to the storing side, that could look like savings accounts and more emergency funds, CDs. But on the growing side, which a lot of you are here for, is talk about the retirement accounts, the brokerage, and even things like index funds that are going to be inside of those accounts to actually grow it. The job description for storing money is going to look like being safe, the safe part, but as well as also liquidity, meaning it's just there. It's just not growing, it's just storing. Then on the growing side is that it's growing over time. So it's like the big balloon, or as you saw, I believe that was in part one where we saw where things grow, the growing of it all. But when it comes to storing, the risk is low, meaning if you don't have to worry about the stock market, you don't have to worry about a headline. But on the other side of growing, the your risk tolerance is for being able to handle what goes on if the risk of growing. The returns are variable, but they're going to compound over time. Both of these actually have a sense of compound interest, meaning you not storing or growing your money is going to compound even if you were to do it. So if you're not doing it, it's going to compound to less time into actually growing or storing that money, or less time in or more time into seeing the gains that will come with it. And one of the things I want to call out before I was a little long-winded on this one is understanding your capacity versus your consistency. If you look at your budget and determine, I have this amount of money, how can I find the accounts to actually grow it? So it's about understanding, starting what's in your budget, understanding your cash flow, and not saying, oh, I need to have $500. If I have $5, how can I make that still grow over time? That goes into compound interest. And a lot of people love to say that the compounding of assets will accumulate over time. But the thing is that understanding not only your returns that you get for something, but how do you earn returns on that return? I know, tongue tied. The theory that we talked about in part one was that even if you were to start at 55 doing the same thing that you were at 25, that's still going to put you light years ahead of people that don't even, I'm not going to say they don't save or they just can't. Right now, it's a little bit of a meeting of the minds when it comes to understanding what's going on with the pulse of the economy. Is that some people, the compound interest is not necessarily them or even self-inflation. It's maybe it's the economy saying, okay, I can't save for $200 a month. Maybe I could save 20. Maybe I could and find my 1%. But this is what I wanted to draw down is that here's how numbers can look in real life. So if you look at your budget, find that you have $200, I wish it was 20, and you start at 25, over 40 years, you have $525,000. But if you are like me, I think that would be good for me to add that caveat. You started really getting serious about money at 30, 35, heck, even 45. That you did that, find that same $200 within your savings and you put it into um, a different type of investment account, stocks, bonds, or whatever, in a 30-year time span horizon that you see 243,000. While that is calling out the head start, I still want you to be able to do a head start on where you were. So even if you were to do it 1% better than the whatever you were doing, which is nothing, it's still something. Don't let this slide being for illustration purposes make you feel ill will about if you're starting behind the curve because the car still drives. One of the things that I love to call out is how money doesn't buy you happiness, but it buys you options. Well, they say it doesn't. Or it also helps you with obligations. The real cost of not growing your money over time isn't necessarily a smaller number at retirement. It's fewer choices that you have at that stage of life because things are kind of set up that way. And growing your money is about creating those choices, but it's also creating the option to say, maybe I can retire at 50. Maybe I can retire at 65, or even if it's 69. And know how I called out around the 70-year mark, but it's about understanding not only the age that you can do, but how does retirement feel for you? It could be to get your kids started. I've been seeing a lot of parents talking about starting their kids off strong with different savings accounts or investment accounts. Maybe that becomes an option whenever you start putting yourself first sooner. And then you don't have to be wealthy to invest. Let me drive that down and say that and pause, because you need to be intentional. This is why it's key for you to go to understand your insights to figure out your capacity and your consistency. Maybe it is, I know I have 50 or I have $100 a month, but going back to your budget to determine, hey, if I have $50 a month, how am I going to make that $50 stretch? If you are like me, go to the grocery store and say, I got $50 to buy this, and you are going to make that $50 stretch. That is the same way it comes to about growing your money. How are we going to take what we have in our hand and water it to make it stretch and grow over time? And one of the things that Warren Buffett loves to say, is time in the market, not timing or trying to figure out when to jump in. It's about handling your life that you have now, being able to afford the cost of eggs while determining how can I build my nest egg. That is a thing that has been kind of disjointed when it comes to talking about growing our money with what we have. Is that how can we find a balanced approach to be able to live now as well as grow for later. Moving from annoyed with your accounts to align with how our financial strategy is key, because finances and life goes hand in hand. And one of the things that I like to call out is that you hear about financial planning, but how does life plan along with it? It goes hand in hand. And that's the financial piece and peace that comes to being one of the clearest financial strategies that you can have. So, going back to the whole analogy of that, every product has a job, every account has a job. So, one of the things that you probably have heard is about people having multiple bank accounts, but that's the same way that I want you to have that aspect of income streams when it comes to your accounts as well as the instruments within it. The financial world has a lot of jargons, acronyms, and it's kind of like all over the place. And when I worked in financial services, that was one of the things that I was kind of like, okay, this you have to not necessarily dumb it down, but layer it down for people to leverage it a bit better. So it goes to financial products, and the account is where your money lives, but the tools are what allows it to grow. Most of the jargon that you probably have heard is 401k, 403b, IRA, index fund, ETFs. But here's the buckets I want you to take and thinking about it. Is that you have your accounts, you have your retirement account, like I just called out. But what are in those actual retirement accounts to make it grow? Stocks, bonds, funds, things like that. And now I have to add this little bit of a spice to it is cryptocurrency. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to know that that is what people are wondering about, is that should I have cryptocurrency in my 401k or should I add it into my IRA mix? But it's about understanding the volatility that comes with each level of these. Then you have things like the brokerage account, which is what you will see if you were to go to different platforms or brokerage or wirehouses that you can do, but it's separate from your retirement. And this is one of the things I want to call out, and I didn't really think about it until I was talking through it, is that I call each of these accounts income streams, but you're taking one income and stringing it into each pocket or bucket that I think about. Well, if you are a person that wears jeans, you have a retirement account, you have a brokerage account. There's two pockets on the front. Then you have pockets on the back, such as your savings, as well as even things like annuities. I know annuities is another spicy topic, but it's guaranteed income contracts. So the thing is to figure out what accounts fit into the risk as well as the gain that I want over time. and then what instruments are going to be what allows it to grow. So before you hire someone or you are applying for a job, you know that they have a job description. You want to go into that job knowing not only what's on that job description, but how am I supposed to perform? You probably have heard about key performance metrics or key performance indicators or metrics, meaning these are the goal points that you have. So the principle applies to financial tools. You open up a retirement account. What are the goals that you have for it? Not to just contribute, but how can I distribute to make it grow over time? And same thing goes with emergency funds, savings accounts, HSA, FSA. How am I taking that account and what's not only going in at a certain savings rate, but how am I going to allow it to accumulate over time? And to even add another layer to it is that here's the thing that I want to call out because these are oftentimes the big three when people are talking about their money or they're saving for in retirement or growing their money. It's the 401k, 403b, the traditional or regular IRA or the Roth IRA. And the reason why I add that little bit of an asterisk is because to call out what they are is that certain plans are similar, but they have different tax implementations that come with it. We all know that when it comes to a 401k, these are oftentimes sponsored by your employer and a retirement builder, but in true fashion, you know if you are a small business owner that that 401k is going to look a little different for you. That could be a solo 401k or a SEP IRA. I probably opened up the floodgates of people's minds thinking, but I want you to still continue to look in it at this capacity. It reduces taxable income today, and your employer match is part of your compensation. The thing that I want to call out about the employer match is that if the company says that they're doing up to, pay attention to that word of what up to looks like, and then layer it down into your contributions. The limitations that can come with it is that the investment choices, meaning the different types of funds you have, but your tax upon withdrawal, especially if you do the 59 and a half in a day. But when it goes over to these two, I call them siblings of it being the traditional or regular IRA or IRA, which is the IRA is individual retirement account. Simple. One allows you to get pre-tax, and one is going to be tax-free as it grows throughout your retirement. One is tax deferred. As you see, the required minimum distribution happens around 73. And then, like you said, these are best fit for early career. While it's best fit for early career, I am noticing a lot of people that are 55 and above starting to pool to do the IRA, regardless of if they do a backdoor from a traditional and open up a Roth or whatever. They're finding their pockets when it comes to their investment strategy. And going back to the theory around that the account has a job title. What's inside, like the stocks, the funds, and the bonds, are what's going to actually make the work go. So, in a team environment, I'm a sports fan, is that it's not necessarily just the coach, meaning you. It's about what does each player on the team do? Are they the center? Are they the quarterback? What in different sports? Or what did they do? And then what skills like stocks, bonds, or whatever are going to fit within that. But the key thing around it is that understanding not only what job description that they're going to be doing, but understanding what makes them great. And then what makes it relate is your risk tolerance, your research, and the reach. When I say the reach, it means your capacity of saving or contributing. And then outside of retirement, you still can put your money to work. Going back to the theory around the brokerage account, which is flexible. It's not tied to anything. It's not tied to a large cap, any kind of cap, but they have the stocks and they have the bonds. Stocks is where you have small ownership, very small ownership of the company. You're not Warren Buffett that just stepped away from Berkshire Hathaway, but you still are the Warren Buffett of your account. But then how does stocks actually earn money and grow? It's due to the value that happens within the company, and then it also pays dividends to you. This best for long term. So I'm thinking 10 plus years down the road, but it's based upon your goals. One of the things that I said recently to someone is that your goals tells your money where to go. The thing that you have to watch out for, just like going back to the whole sports analogy, is that if you are playing another team, the other team is the economy sometimes, as well as the volatility of the market, is that you have to be able to understand how that one team player, like the star player, moves. If they move differently, that can determine how are you going to play this game. I'm not calling it like a gamification, but it is true is that you have to determine what skill set do you have and then how can I play no matter what the other team is doing. And then on the other side of it, you have bonds. Bonds are literally a loan that you make, yes, you, to a government, to the government as well as a company. Versus when it comes to stocks that pay a dividend, you technically get paid a different way through interest over time. And returns happen whenever that bond matures or whenever how the fund manager handles it. This is good for stability as well as income generation. The reason why I'm at this end is that if you are finding yourself 50 and up, and if you're going to look at your target date fund or anything like that, you're gonna be noticing that the mix that you would have as far as stocks, bonds, and everything like that looks different whenever you get older because of the volatility that certain stocks and bonds handle towards that. One of the things to watch out with bonds is that you have to determine the loan growth potential that could be impacted by interest rate changes. If you have been watching what goes on with the Federal Reserve, you will know that can anticipate how these bonds move. Going back to a theory that I keep saying again and again, that having a combination of these players on your team is what's going to allow you to win. No matter if you feel like you're down in the third, that you're still trying to make up for how you performed before the half, that you still can make growth happen. It's about understanding what can you invest, how to make the best out of it, and then what goes on inside that team. That's how stocks and bonds compare, is that you have to figure out, am I going to have a lot of stocks on my team or in my account? Or am I going to have a lot of bonds on my team or in my account? And sometimes you might have to switch up the players. It depends on what's going on in the game. And then to add another bit of gumbo, product gumbo, is that if you are hearing about stocks, that you probably have heard about these three different types of stock or combination of stock. That's a better way for me to put it. You have the index funds, the mutual funds, and the ETFs, which are the exchange traded funds. The thing around index funds is that these are reflective upon the market. So think the S&P or the Standard and Poor's 500, the S&P 500 or like the a whole group of the 500 largest publicly traded companies. You own a slice of all of those within that automatically. And one of the things I love to call out is about a wealth wallet fit, meaning where you are with your wallet and then where you want to be with your wealth. This goes when it comes to index funds, it's about for mostly everyday investors, no matter the life stages. And it's kind of like a set it or forget it, depending on the fund that you pocket into. But the limitation that comes with it is that you won't necessarily beat the market. Sounds Warren Buffett to me, but you will still keep a pace of what's going on, no matter how the active fund managers handle it. And honestly, I put the mutual funds in the middle because they kind of are like the interweaving of both the index fund as well as the ETF. But with mutual funds, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about mutual funds lately because it's allowing someone to make buy or sell decisions on your behalf whenever it's pulled into that fund itself. One of the things, again, with the wallet wealth fit is that investors who want the professional management but don't mind paying for it because It come with a little bit of a service fee depending on, but you'll see that within an expense ratio within these accounts. And I wish I would have put it on the slide, but it's so much I can put on here. But when it comes to these types of accounts, those higher fees can eat into your returns. But the thing that is what makes them attractive to some people is that most active funds underperform index funds, but it allows a little bit of a safety risk per se. So you understand what goes on in your risk tolerance, you find the account that matches it, that and people have been noticing what's going on with the economy. That is probably why they're going towards these type of funds. But one of my favorite types of investment picks are ETFs. Think of ETFs the same way as you do with index funds, but these are have a little bit more flexibility. If you are known to go to Sam's, Costco, or whatever, or even the grocery store, that you know you go get the bag of chips that have different assortments, think of an ETF as that. It has a little bit of a, we got a couple bags of Apple, we got a couple bags of Nvidia, we got a couple bags of what of let me think of another company, Microsoft. That is what the person or the brokerage or the wirehouse will pull that particular ETF to have a percentage of those different bags of chips within it. The wallet fit is being a little bit more cost conscious due to what the expense ratio. So think of whatever you buying that for. They're charging a specific amount that's going to allow it to not be so much heavy as what we could see with others. So the limitation that comes with that is that it requires a brokerage account, but it's a little bit more complex to the best basic index fund due to percentages and things that go into it. Let's see. Mm. And going back to a little bit of what we talked about in part one, but bringing a little bit of another product into it, is that I want to add more into the CDE conversation of it. Is that CDs are like if you have the cash up front, that you can put it away for 3 months, 5 years, depending on, and it's going to grow a fixed in interest rate. Memorize how you interest rates. Well, the more you saved and how long you keep it there is how much it's going to get paid. So it has no exposure to the stock market. Whenever you don't need the money for a specific window of a time, you don't need to touch it. If you need to touch it, you look into a regular savings account, or you look into a high yield savings account, or even a money market account, not a CD. If you open a CD for 3 months, you cannot touch that money until it matures. That is what is the limitation of it all. Is that if you were to touch it at month 2.5, that you're going to get early withdrawal penalties as well as it not being liquid throughout the whole term of what you have it for. So say for instance, if I'm borrowing this phone, I want to hold it for 3 months. I can't, they're going to take it away from me, but I own it. If I try to sell this phone, I'm going to get hit because it's been before the 3 months. But on the annuity side, annuities oftentimes go through insurance companies and they pay a lump sum or they pay out over time. They pay you back guaranteed income. So say for instance, if it's a pot of money, you can't see that, I hate that, that they're paying you from it. It's like a reverse kind of a savings account that you have already put the money there, but they're going to pay you a little bit over time. It depends on the type of annuity. That's a whole nother conversation. But it shows up when you retire and you need that income stream the most, and that you want a little bit more security or income stream beyond just a 401k, IRA, Social Security, or whatever pension that you may have. The thing that makes it very attractive to people is that wealth wallet fit is that when people are near or in retirement, they want that guaranteed income that that's not going to outlive them. They can't outlive the money. And that's one of the scaries that people find when it comes to retirement. The limitation, though, is that it can be very complex depending on how it's written, and it has high fees, and it's hard to reverse depending on what be. So I wanted to add this bit of a spectrum of what we talked about previously as well as currently is that whenever you're looking at the small or lower risk of or return, that's what you're going to have with savings account. And then on the other end of it, you're going to notice that crypto is very high risk, but depending on the all-time highs, what's going on with the divide, that you may see a higher return. The thing of it though is that risk and return are linked. The higher potential return equals the higher potential loss. We don't know about how if you're putting or trying, I don't want to call it gambling, but you're placing your assets to align and accumulate over time. No instrument is going to, when I say instrument, that's savings, CDs, bonds, anything like that, it's going to have a high growth with zero risk. If you want more growth, you're going to have more risk. If someone is offering you that, walk away. But your position on understanding your personal spectrum is how it affects your timeline, your goals, as well as your risk tolerance. The same 30-year timeline that you may have might look a little bit different than someone else in the chat may have. But it's also about how do you not only manage where you start at, but manage what comes along with it. We've been noticing that, hey, it's been a lot of speculation that if something was to happen to the stock market, this is what's going to happen. If that's going to, it's different things that can happen. But the thing that I would say is that you have to put time in versus timing what's going to happen. Like a 2 year timeline for a home can't handle market swings, but the stock market is if it's going to swing low, it's going to swing high. It's always an ebb and flow to not only your feelings but also the funds and how different things run. The key thing, though, that I want to add is around diversification. Diversification kind of goes back to that assortment bag of having different things. Is that if you are having your money, there we go, spread different pockets, that it means one bad outcome that you're having in the stock market in this account is not going to impact your overall portfolio. Oftentimes, when we hear about portfolios, it's about, oh, this is my 401k, this is my IRA, this is my brokerage account. But I want you to think of all of your accounts, savings, investing, retirement, even real estate as an overarching portfolio. And if you're allowed that, you know that this account might not be performing better than that account, but it's steady. But most long-term portfolios hold growth-oriented stuff on the right side, but you also, the way that you have the right is the way that you need the left. Knowing me, I can actually write with both hands, but I know that my right hand is going to be a little bit more steadier than my left hand. So it's about understanding how do I pick what diversification looks like within a duration of my accounts, as well as how I move with them. So this is where, yep, I timed it almost where I wanted to be because I want to answer some questions tonight. Is which of these instruments are you already using or familiar with? Most people are familiar with the 401k, the traditional IRA, or the Roth IRA. Then we have stocks and bonds, index funds, CDs, savings, or you're not using any of those yet. And that's the reason why you're here. Or are you using a mix of all the above? Let's see if I could. Nope. There we go. Because I was waiting for that to come on. A mix of all. Oh, I'll see. I got some good questions. Okay. Then we have on the other side, what is your biggest gap in your current financial plan? And this is one of the, I think I added into, is that storing my money but not growing it. I don't know which products are right for me. I haven't thought enough about retirement, or I'm not sure of how to adjust to my life changes, meaning finding the capacity in your budget for it. A lot of people right now are starting to rethink how they look at retirement and say, hey, I can't save this amount that they are suggesting, but what does it look like with my situation? And hopefully you are in, I'm not, I don't know why I put decent shape, but you are in good shape. but you want to sharpen it. And no offense if you are all the above, because a lot of people right now are all the above. I want to close. I think, yeah, we had to close around this right here. Is that if you are here for part one, you know we talked about life stages. But one of the things that comes into financial planning, regardless if you're working with someone or you working or DIYing it, is that you have to understand not only the capacity, not only the consistency, but where are you currently. Meaning, if you're early in your career, 30s, 20s, 30s, that right now what matters most to you is setting an emergency fund or even starting to invest in your retirement. Going back to parents that are thinking about their kids, is that, hey, if you had parents that were able to open up an IRA, open up a custodial account, that maybe you are starting to actively manage that yourself, is that you don't have to have a lot of money to actually grow money. If you are mid career, 30 to 50, yes, that's 50s or mid career, is that you're pushing those contributions a little bit more higher. If you know that you have catch up contributions that will start to kick in around 55 or 50, 55. And but the thing going back to what's going on with your money or your pulse is that sandwich generation, meaning you are financial planning for yourself, financial planning for your parents, financial planning for your kids or for your village. And it's that's that sandwich era. But the thing that I wanted to add is do not allow you having to have things pulled all over the place make you neglect yourself. Going on into that pre-retirement or retirement is that those contributions that you're trying to not only catch up the contributions, but being more meticulous on the mix that you will notice within your target date funds or your retirement accounts or what's suggested to you. The IRS allows you to do higher contributions, but it's more about you being more hands on the distribution of how things go and grow, no matter what's going on in this economy. And then if you are a retiree, that you making your money last and you managing what pool you have as well as when. And going on to what your money looks like is that requirement that it comes for distribution is starting at 73. So if you finding yourself at 72, how are you taking that contribution or distribution and what job are you going to give it in retirement? We hear about having this certain amount, regardless if it starts with an M, which is millions, or thousands, or you just trying to start. Is that you hear about how much you should have saved. But a thing that I've been noticing with a lot of retirees that come to me is that they don't have understanding on not only the job description for different accounts, but how can they still be making things grow as they go through their golden ages so that still is generating income as it grows. And then you don't need a perfect plan, meaning you don't have to be operating like the talking heads that you see on social media that not because you don't care, but because you showed up and making things manageable within the life you have now. And this is four questions I want you to take away to start you not only thinking, but also determine what traction can you do. The first one is where am I right now? That means for accounts, savings, debt. You have to be honest with your numbers. If someone was to come to you and say, I'm going to pay off your debt, how much debt do you have? Being understanding that you have that number, you're able to audit your wallet. But then going on into the second question is, where do I want to be? Meaning, what goals do you have and by when? Oftentimes we have these big account goals, but how does it align to your going about it? And then from where you are to where you want to be, what's that gap, that dash? Meaning, what's missing from being underfunded that's between different than one and two? If you like me, I wear glasses, so you can't tell I have contacts. It's that if you know when the optometrist like to do, is you can see better in one or two. One or two. So you're understanding the difference between what's going on with number one and what's going on with number two. And then what is for you understanding your gap? You're falling into the gap. What is going to be your 1% or that next move? That could mean specifically being able to do it this week and continue to understand what consistently looks like within the money in your hand. We can wish for the more, but how are we handling what our means look like now? And this is right here. It's just understanding the time in and the timing, meaning the market goes up and down. But building wealth over time is understanding to not necessarily take your emotions out, but manage your emotions for the understanding the wallet that you have now. It can have the capacity to grow to the wealth that you want for later. Selling everything when the market drops or panic selling is not going to be what's protecting you. It's about understanding how can I manage my emotions and how can I manage how I'm going about it. If I'm noticing that the market is doing a little differently, what are the alternatives for me? How the kids say crashing out? How are the alternatives for me crashing out, but me staying consistent in? That could be dollar cost averaging. That could be understanding fractional shares. If you don't have enough to buy a full ETF, do I have a fractional share? It's about figuring out what the things look like within the schedule that you have and what strategy aligns you to automatically handle what goes on outside. And it's about keeping your eyes on what you're building, not what could be going on outside the building. Not a daily account number, but how are you staying accountable regardless of what goes on? That's the life that we're building, not only in our wallets, not only in our wealth, but within our well being. So, I had a time on the refrigerator that I wanted to kind of nail it by. So this was two different sessions, two different frameworks, but one picture, which is part one was going on the understanding the money landscape, the pulse, the position, the pivot. And on part two is understanding the purpose, the product, and the plan. Those six are, if you know about Captain Planet, I think it was six kids. Each of them has a thing that they do, but it's about understanding how does part one and part two build into over your overall knowing and growing your goals into a roadmap that allows your money to flow throughout time. So let's see what questions that we have.
All right, I got a couple of them compiled in one place here.
Aren't you
So
efficient?
I try my best. So the first one that popped up, and I kind of just want to like point people to the right direction if you do have kind of one-off questions like this. We had a member who kind of wanted to share a little bit about their situation, 55, newly divorced, wants help with
Oh,
investing and things like that. In situations like that,
okay.
if you're looking for a little bit of one-on-one conversations like
Mm-hmm.
that, we do have an email. It's on the screen right there, and I will also drop it in the chat here.
Yes.
Hello at thebrandsandbands.com. I just dropped that in there. That will take you directly to Nadia. So if you have any
Mm-hmm.
questions for Nadia about specific situations like that, that may be a little bit more sensitive or private, please feel free to reach out to Nadia at hello at thebrandsandbands.com. First
Mm-hmm.
question that I wanted to ask was one that popped up in the Q&A. And if anybody else has any questions as we go through this, we have about 12 minutes left. Please make sure to drop those in the Q&A as well. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. But
Mm-hmm.
somebody asked, can you have an employer sponsored 401k plus either a traditional or Roth IRA in any given tax year, provided they are
Mm-hmm.
currently working? And do you
Mm-hmm.
find, I guess, a lot of benefit in having both a 401k and an IRA going at the same time?
I love it if you do it. The reason why is going back to the different income streams. If you are contributing to your 401k at your employer, you open up a traditional, depending on your income, the traditional or the Roth. Is that whenever you determine that, hey, I hit match or I hit what I want for that, I want to go ahead and create another income stream within the IRA, no matter if it's Roth or regular. And then the thing that a lot of people do when they do open it is that they look to determine what mix do I have within my 401k that are performing well, and then what have I researched within the stock market or anything like that to put into my IRA. And then the thing is being, let me go ahead and say this, is that you have to understand your contribution limits within the IRA. If you are, this is 2026, so it's 7,500 over the year. So that breaks down to 140-ish per month. I think, yeah, my math is interesting, especially this time of night. But that's what I would say is that you think of, yes, those are good to have multiple ones, but if you were to leave your employer and or had an old employer, a lot of people have been rolling over their old 401ks into those IRAs and utilizing that to grow. But the thing is that if you were to move money over or to start in opening up the IRA, is that you don't just let the money sit there. You allow it to, you contribute, but you distribute for it to grow. So, long story long, yes, have the 401k, but have the IRA as well as an
Yeah.
income stream for later.
It all comes back to diversification, as you were
Mhm.
talking about earlier. So I
Yes.
love that. Somebody asked, and this might be kind of a general or a broader question, but hopefully you can
Hmm.
shed a little bit of insight on this. What do I need to invest monthly at the average market return beginning at around age 28 in order to retire with hopefully a few million at retirement? So if you wanted to start in your 20s, what would you recommend as like a numeric number for investing monthly, considering an average market return, I guess.
I will see what can you do within your capacity. Most people, oftentimes around that age bracket, will say around the $300 to $400. But also, again, going back into seeing how much can I contribute, but how I distribute. That is what's going to be key. It's not necessarily how much you're putting in. I can't go too much in it. I have to tread lightly. But what funds are you going to allow that amount that you can do consistently for the next 30 to 40 years? Think about what's going on in the job market. I'm not risking anything, but you have to understand your life as well as how can we leverage that account over time. So consistently, if you can do 300, 400, or whatever, but also distribute it for it to grow no matter how the market is and flows, that's the key part of it.
Perfect.
There are a lot, and I'm sure that you guys have a calculator that will allow you to see how it will grow. So, pointing back to you guys, that you can use those calculators to not only plug in, but also whenever you do that, you look to see what actually fits within my budget. If it's comfortable, cool. But then also reaching out to say, hey, can I see what funds match my risk, my reward, as well as my reach?
For sure. And I will piggyback off that for some of the calculators that we have at Patelco. So
Mm-hmm.
on our website, patelco.org, just to kind of give our little plug here, we have
You
two
supposed to
tabs
plug.
you can go to. Two tabs you can go to. So on our financial wellness tab, there's we have a platform called Bonsai, which I actually talked
Mm-hmm.
about a couple months ago in our budgeting webinar. And on our Bonsai platform,
Ooh.
there are so many calculators you can use. So there's rent affordability calculators, there's 50, 30, 20 budgeting calculators. One of them is a long term retirement planning calculator as well. So I would definitely take a look at that. Again, our financial wellness tab, Bonsai is the platform where you can play around with all those calculators. And then on our investments tab, also, there's a lot of robo advising options as well, and sort of some self guided options you can do there too. So we do have plenty of tools that are available to our members for free on our website. I would just recommend everybody kind of play around with those tabs on there.
I
Um,
always play around with those.
yeah, see what we
Mm-hmm.
got. This popped up early in the webinar, and this might be kind of a recap question for part one, but I know we have
Mm-hmm.
quite a few new attendees today. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody asked what to do with a substantial amount of money in a checking account. And I guess I would kind of expand upon that question and ask, is there a dollar amount or like a percentage that you recommend keeping in checking? And then perhaps maybe you don't have a lot of extra money to put in, start playing the stock market, or maybe your risk tolerance is low. What would you advise kind of with like your liquid assets as instead of just keeping it all in one, low interest checking account?
That almost goes comparable to what I'm getting ready to say for someone that's asked if it's wise to have money in different banks. This
Mm-hmm.
almost goes hand in hand. I'm being nosy. Is that you determine, look at your whole life. It bills, expenses, lifestyle, savings, and things like that. Then you determine how many accounts do you need. I suggest that people don't put everything in one basket, no pun,
Mm-hmm.
but to say, hey, if I'm going to have this checking account that the whole check goes into, or it's split up, I have a checking account for my life. I have a checking account for leverage. Bills are leverage, so we're going to call that. But then when it comes to savings, in a regular savings account, please have a regular savings account. I know high yield savings accounts and CDs are the it girl right now, but having a regular savings account is good as well. And then having a high yield savings account or a money market account, yeah, right? Yeah, that you determine based upon your goals how much money will go there. It's interesting for me to give suggestions on things, but it depends on what you have in your cash flow, your goals, and where you want that money to go. But when it comes to the question I just saw as well, is that should you have different banks? Things happen.
Hmm.
As someone that I don't want to say loves cybersecurity, but as someone that's very nosy on how things happen, that if something was to happen at a bigger bank, with Paleco, you have that account and they are fine and they have this and that. But it's about not only the security within that, but the strategy in it. So, long story short, more than one account, but it's up to you to determine the job description within it, how much the actual account will hold month to month. And even if you were looking into a CD, be mindful. I love CDs, but I hate the fact that when you put the money in, you have to wait to take it out. But when it comes to high yield savings account or any kind of savings accounts that may be out there, those will allow the money to grow and you get paid as you save. That is what's attractive about it. But it's about understanding where you are, understanding what your cash flow looks like month to month, and then making a strategy on which accounts and how many accounts. And another thing, please don't think you have to have two football teams of accounts. I saw someone that says I have the ADHD, I have ADHD, that they have 15 accounts. If you're not able to keep accountability on those accounts, I don't want you to think to open up all these accounts and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot what is this? What is that? That's good for having a budgeting app, but it's also good if you were to able to open up a spreadsheet or understanding particularly where this money is, what the job it has, and how is it aligning. A thing that I have been talking about is everybody's been saying around AI and artificial intelligence is bringing it back to account intelligence. How are you handling your account? Do you know what's going on before you lean into AI or chat or Claude? Is that you're doing your own account intelligence? So not having a whole spider web of accounts, but being able to hold accountability with the three, the four, or however more that you need.
Awesome. Love that answer. Um,
Hmm.
this one just popped up, and I want to. I know this is probably a big question, but this is, I think, something that a lot of our members are currently dealing with. So
I
the
got it.
exact verbiage is I'm 62 and I haven't been able to save a lot of money for retirement, and I have a Roth, but not enough to retire. What can I do to get ready for retirement? So if you have any kind of like singular tip or like big picture idea for somebody who is nearing retirement age and maybe isn't in the financial place that they were hoping to be. What are
Hmm.
some tips or tricks that you might have for someone in that position?
One tip that I would have is that think about where you have worked in the past. We're going back to what we talked about previously. Is that if you worked somewhere previously in the past and you had a 401k or anything like that, HSA, that if you move that old money over, go do a search. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of people have noticed that they like it's lost money, that they've forgotten about it. They left the company. So that's what a suggestion I would have. Another one will be what we talked about in part one, where someone else acts similar to this. Is that I'm looking within my budget. I determine I can't save what they say to save. So how can I lessen my blow on expenses? Looking at those subscriptions, looking to see what can I do as far as gig work. I'm just keeping it honest that it's some people that have been gig working to put money to the side. It's about understanding if can I cut subscriptions? Can I get a lower rate to pay off debt to start moving it into investing and saving for it later. It's about understanding where you are, your alternatives, and making it a line and account to grow over time and to be okay with it. A thing that I noticed and I saw on threads earlier was someone saying that they felt bad about the amount of debt that they had. Money is not just money, it's emotion. And a lot of people right now have been doing the best that they can with what they have and noticing that they don't have as much as they would have dreamed to. So, how can we make what we have grow not only towards retirement, but also in retirement? I want us to start rethinking how we see retirement because you still have time to make money align and define throughout retirement. And to know that you are not late ever. This is understanding your alternatives and making things align the best that you can.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put.
Mhm.
All right, we are right at time. So there were a couple questions I don't think we got around to, but if anybody wants any questions, again, expanded on, I will drop that email one more time in the chat. Hello at the brands. Actually, I have it. I can just copy and paste it real quick. Hello at the
Easier.
brandsandbands.com. We are, as I mentioned at the beginning, going to have a short survey that'll pop up as soon as I close this webinar out. If you all
Mhm.
who are in attendance would not mind just taking a minute or two to fill that out, it would be super helpful both to myself and Nadia. We get a lot of great ideas for future webinar topics as well from those. So really, really helpful and really grateful for you guys that take a moment to fill that out for us. Nadia, thank you so much for your time
Thank
these
you
two
for having
Wednesdays in
me.
November. I myself have learned
November, we're ahead of
November.
the
I don't know why that
curve.
came from. May. Let's not wish time away like that. Thank you for this time in May. I appreciate you. And all of our attendees this evening, thank you for
Thank
joining us
you.
as well. You enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening, and we will see you not in June. We actually do take June off for webinars, but we will see you all in July for our return to webinar season. Have a good rest of your evening, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Hey, you guys, hope you liked that video. Thank you for watching. For more financial wellness information, go ahead and click here to subscribe and here to watch the next video. Thank you.